Well, we're on to the third week already of this whole series. And now, where are we going to go to next? Well, we're going to go to 1991 and visit a certain prisoner that's going to greet you all like this. Hello, Clarice.
Drop on by the Clown Cafe. Drop on by the Clown Cafe. The grub is downright gruesome, but your appetite's obey. 'Cause food's a little funny, food's a little funny, food's a little funny at the Clown Cafe. Drop on by the Clown Cafe, your favorite meals on wheels. The menu is disgusting and it's full of special deals. Nothing here is good for you, so grab yourself a tray. 'Cause food's a little funny at the Clown Cafe. Drop on by the Clown Cafe. Drop on by the Clown Cafe. Gobble up your order quick before it runs away. 'Cause food's a little funny at the Clown Cafe. Why not visit after school and have yourselves a bite? An appetizing appetizer certain to delight. We haven't done it right unless it makes your teeth decay. 'Cause food's a little funny at the Clown Cafe. Drop on by the Clown Cafe. Drop on by the Clown Cafe. The grub is downright gruesome, but your appetites obey. 'Cause food's a little funny, food's a little funny, food's a little funny at the Clown Cafe.
Hey everyone, it's Don J. Corleone here, and I'm here with a brand new episode 10 of Halloween Horror Movies Season 4, and we're on to the third week now. It's crazy. This episode, though, is going to be a 1991 psychological thriller film. It's often regarded as a horror film at times. And it's the most infamous movie that stars an iconic cannibal in horror. And this one has also been a request. And this was requested by the very first YouTube pal that's subscribed to this channel since the very, very beginning time it started. This all started. So he's been part of this whole channel since the very beginning of this whole series, back when it was Gorilla G Roxon or Movie Lover 20. This review is going to be for none other what Lukimus Prime has requested. It's 1991's Silence of the Lambs. So what's the plot of this? Well, FBI trainee Clarice Starling, played by Jodie Foster, works hard to advance her career while trying to hide or put behind her West Virginia roots, of which if some knew, would automatically classify her as being backward or white trash. After graduation, she aspires to work in the agency's behavioral science unit under the leadership of Jack Crawford, played by Scott Glenn. While she is still a trainee, Crawford asks her to question Dr. Hannibal Lecter, played by Sir Anthony Hopkins, a psychiatrist imprisoned, thus far for 8 years in maximum security isolation for being a serial killer who cannibalizes victims. Clarice is able to figure out the assignment is to pick Lecter's brains to help them solve another serial murder case, that of someone coined by the media as Buffalo Bill, played by Ted Levy, who has so far killed 5 victims. And all located in the eastern U.S., all young women who are slightly overweight, especially around the hips, all who are drowned in natural bodies of water, who is stripped of large swaths of skin. She also figures that Crawford chose her as a woman to be able to trigger some emotional response from Lecter. After speaking to Lecter for the first time, she realizes that everything with him will be a psychological game. They're often having to read between the very cryptic lines he provides. She has to decide how much she will play along, as his requested return for taking him is to expose herself emotionally to him. And the case takes a more dire turn when a 6th victim is discovered. This one from who they are able to retrieve a key piece of evidence. If Lecter is being forthright as to its meaning, a potential 7th victim is high profile. And that profile is Catherine Martin, played by Brooke Smith, the daughter of Senator Ruth Martin, who is played by Diane Baker, which places greater scrutiny on the case as they search for hopefully still life Catherine. When they factor what happens is Dr. Frederick Chilton, was played by Anthony Helt, the warden at the prison, an opportunist who seeks the higher profile of Catherine, meaning a higher profile for himself if he can insert himself successfully into the proceedings. Yeah, so, that being said, how was this movie made? Well, The Silence of the Lambs was actually based on the 1988 novel by Thomas Harris. It was the second film to feature the character Hannibal Lecter. The first one was actually Manhunter, which was adopted from a Harris novel, and where Hannibal was played by Brian Cox instead of Anthony Hopkins. Prior to the release of The Silence of the Lambs novel, Orion Pictures partnered with Gene Hackman to adopt it for film, with Hackman set to direct and possibly stars an FBI agent Jack Crawford. Negotiations were made to split the $500,000 cost of rights between Hackman and the studio. Producers also had to acquire the rights of the Lecter character, which are owned by Manhunter producer Dino De Laurentiis. Owing to the financial failure of Manhunter, De Laurentiis left the rights to Orion for free. Then in November 1987, Ted Talley was brought on to write the adaptation. Talley had crossed paths with Harris many times, was interested in adopting Silence of the Lambs, originating from receiving an advance copy of the book from Harris. When Talley was about halfway through with the first draft, Hackman withdrew from the project and financially fell through. However, Orion co-founder Mike Medavoy encouraged Talley to keep writing as the studio took care of financing and searching for a replacement director. And Orion sought director Jonathan Demme to helm the project. With the screenplay not yet completed though, Demme signed on after reading the novel. From there, the project developed quickly, and Talley said that Demme read his first draft not long after it was finished, and once they met, they just started the speed of things, and they met in May 1989, and were shooting in November, and didn't remember any big revisions. Then when it came to casting for the actors, Jodie Foster was interested in playing... Sorry about that, guys. Jodie Foster was interested in playing FBI agent Clarice Starling immediately after reading the novel, and despite having just won an Academy Award for her performance in The Accused, Demme was not initially convinced that she was right for the role. And Demme's first choice for the role Starling was given to Michelle Pfeiffer, who had turned it down because that would be a difficult decision and she got nervous about the subject matter. Then he approached Meg Ryan, who turned it down because of its gruesome themes. And the studio was skeptical about Lauren Dern as a bankable choice, so Foster ended up being awarded the role due to her passion for the character. And when it came to casting Hannibal Lecter, Demme originally wanted Sean Connery to play the role, but Connery turned it down. Anthony Hopkins was offered the role because of his performance in The Elephant Man. And Hopkins' agent told him that a script was on his way titled Silence of the Lambs. Hopkins responded that he thought it was a children's story, and Hopkins called his agent back after reading the first 10 pages, said that it was the best part he had ever read. He accepted the role after he had dinner with Dean. And not only was Sean Connery considered for the role, guys, there were other actors considered for the Hannibal Lecter role that were Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Dustin Hoffman, Derek Jacobi, and Daniel Day-Lewis even. Were all considered for the films. Even Forrest Whitaker auditioned for the role. And the masked Hoffman were actually even became an iconic symbol for the film. Hopkins developed his portrayal of Lecter by drawing inspiration from HAL 9000 computer, like from 2001: A Space Odyssey, and the vocal appearance of writer Truman Capote. In a 2001 interview with GQ, Hopkins clarified that he did not base Lecter's vocal guidance on Katharine Hepburn, as some people had believed as well. And Hopkins admitted to being intimidated by Jodie Foster too, and felt scared to talk to her. So anyway, after the film was shot and completed, The Silence of the Lambs would be released around January or February 1991, and has been since then regularly cited by critics, film directors, and audiences as one of the greatest and most influential films ever made to this day. And in 2018, Empire ranked it 48th on their list of the 500 greatest movies of all time. Then the American Film Institute rated him on the 5th greatest and most influential thriller film, and Sterling Lecter ranked him among the greatest film heroines and villains as well. And because of its success, it spawned a sequel 10 years later just called Hannibal, and then he had 2 prequel films, Red Dragon 2002, and in 2007 there was a dumpster fire shitfest called Hannibal Rising. Now, as for my reaction to Silence of the Lambs, I fucking love this movie. I sometimes prefer to call this a horror film more than a thrill, to be honest, because it still feels like a horror film a lot of times. This film is phenomenal from start to finish. It's well-paced, it's terrifying, it has a good plot, it has good characters, it has a lot of good things here. The Silence of the Lambs is just a masterpiece nobody should miss. It's a masterwork of suspense that blends the elements of horror, crime, and psychology into one tight and smooth story. It's only the 3rd film in history to win the Academy Awards in all top 5 categories, which was Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Director, Adapted Screenplay, and implies something about technical quality as a film. It features expertise level of craftsmanship in all departments of filmmaking. It takes a huge bonus from the exquisite performances put in its stellar cast. After all these years, Silence of the Lambs remains a league of its own, and it's a perfect exemplification of how just how great a movie can be when all the right elements come together and work in perfect harmony to form a complete whole. The script for the movie is tightly constructed. It patiently leads us to assemble each piece of the puzzle until a series of interactions between Clarice and Hannibal approaches a disturbing truth. The relationship between the two leads is even more fascinating because it deepens their personalities and allows us to get more and more in their background. And the wounds in Clarice's past, the mystery on Hannibal Lecter, and the roots of evil that inspired the serial killer's acts, and it's where the freshness of the film relies on. Its capability to put everything into perspective and invite our perceptions to go beyond the simple good versus evil dichotomy. The villains are no sharks, no monsters, no demons. They're everyday men, like some Norman Bates with an extra level of savagery and pervert creativity, and we try to understand to better fight them. Until the pervert irony that the investigation requires a psychopathic mind to arrest another one. And this was the first of Thomas Harris's Hannibal novels to be adopted for the screen. But then, of course, it got followed like 10 years later with some follow-ups. And despite its age, this remains one of the most effective chillers of modern times. And despite the mainstream appeal of the film, the gritty lighting and laid-back budget give it an art house feel that sets it apart from other films such as films that were just as successful as this. And the film manages some effectively disturbing scenes that make it a not altogether pleasant viewing experience. And performance-wise, in a very early role, a young Jodie Foster at the time showed her promise for future roles, and a gripping portrayal of naivety and vulnerability here that's very compelling and convincing. Even though there's some plausibility problems that someone as junior as her being assigned to do something like that, Hopkins, on the other hand, is brilliant as Lecter, playing this dangerous man behind bars whose ability to get inside your head and see the things you don't want him to see makes him no less dangerous, if not more so, than if he was on the outside. And he certainly received the most acclaim for his role over the years as well. And I think he's a lot more chilling than Buffalo Bill at times, who's also a truly extraordinary psychopath with an unsettling sexuality disorder. He's definitely and Buffalo Bill, though, is definitely one of the nastiest characters to be seen in such a mainstream film. And as supporting FBI agent Crawford, Scott Glenn is impressive, but he just kind of faded into direct-to-video land after this film. And yeah, Silence of the Lambs is definitely entertaining, but it's not like a fun movie to watch every single day. Especially merely because of Buffalo Bill scenes. Like, Bill and his kidnapped young woman are definitely some of the sickest parts of the film. And their scenes are really unpleasant. And think about this, guys. Sorry. Buffalo Bill was based off a real-life serial killer named Ed Gein, who was the inspiration for Buffalo Bill, and the inspiration for Norman Bates from Psycho and Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. And the director of this movie, Jonathan Demme, was a film student of Roger Corman, who made a cameo in the movie. Roger Corman taught not only him, but probably maybe a few other filmmakers as well. Probably also got some inspiration from him. And Ted Levine did a pretty solid job as a serial killer Buffalo Bill. The film is still fun, intense, very well fast-paced, and quickly goes around for those 2 hours. Even though it's still not for the squeamish with those. And there's even some other terrifying scenes involving the infamous Hannibal Lecter. There's some extreme crudeness in the jail and dungeon where Lecter and the other inmates are held, and it follows three main stories. The first story being that of the rookie FBI agent Clarice Starling, other being the psychopath murderer Buffalo Bill, and imprisoned psychiatrist Dr. Hannibal Lecter, imprisoned for murder and cannibalism. Clarice is sent to Dr. Lecter to gain information on Buffalo Bill because he's a former patient of Hannibal, but all Hannibal is interested in is getting inside Clarice's head. And the film goes on, Clarice becomes more deeply involved in the case, right to the dramatic and excellent climax, as well as Hannibal becoming more deeply involved in Clarice's mind, while Buffalo Bill on the other hand continues his murder speed, killing and skinning women, and keeping one imprisoned. This movie is like no other, and it combines 10 scenes with a cast like no other. And when it comes to the performances of the movie, Jodie Foster is excellent in this movie as the FBI agent Clarice Starling, and Scott Glenn is low-key and effective as Jack Crawford. And a major part of the film is psychologically more than violent, as Lecter constantly taunts Clarice while she tries her best to manipulate him to help with a case. and the byplay between the two is a game in itself. Hawkins definitely, though, is definitely the one that people agree is the most. It's definitely the most memorable performance of the film, and the best part of the film. His portrayal as the refined yet cannibalistic, terrifying serial killer doctor is one viewers will definitely never forget. And he's definitely still good in the follow-ups too. The look on his face, his fascinating vocabulary with intelligent sarcasm and frankness, it never ceases to entertain. It's this creepy and taken by storm experience of the film, and background music is darker than sometimes in the film itself and ominous. Plot is brilliantly constructed, conversations are thought-provocative, and to crown the whole, Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins are definitely have some really great chemistry in this film. They take ownership of their characters respectfully and transform into the most unforgettable screen images yet. And more about the character of Hannibal. The psychological path of the character is hard to trace. He's an odd mixture of intelligence, cruelty, insanity, and charisma to the death. A fledgling FBI trainee Clarice is no match for him. She's still naive yet ambitious. And on the trail of serial killer Buffalo Bill, she has to interview Hannibal Lecter to find out more about this guy as well. And during the mind games, the two dance backward and forward between cannibal and FBI agent, mentor and student, psychiatrist and patient, father and daughter, as Clarice breathes life into the multi-dimensional, sophisticated psychopath, and Hannibal, who nudges the aspiring student FBI agent and helps her achieve her first success in a world of Y chromosome, where Garou Crawford uses her, embarrasses her, excludes her, and Dr. Chilton regards her no more than a simple-minded woman tries to flirt with her, frankly explaining that though no lack of other impressive scenes, it's really the nerve fights between Hannibal and Clarice that carries the film. And the direction by Jonathan Demme is marvelous, as the film introduces a chilling sense of dread, and has the audience on the edge of the seats from the moment Howard Shore's ominous score hits the screen till the end of the film, especially during the climax, a lot of perfectly crafted, suspenseful, nail-biting moments. The editing is perfect as the pace is methodical from start to finish, and each and every sequence is relevant to the story. The cinematography by Takafo Fujimino is fantastic as it fully succeeds into creating a very dark and broody atmosphere that captivates as well as terrorizes the audience, while also exhibiting excellent camera work that makes heavy use of close-ups which increase the creepiness and tension, along with displaying an optimal color palette and minimal lighting from start to finish, which further entrances the darker ambience the story was aiming for. And moreover, the production design team has done a magnificent work as every set piece is meticulously crafted, richly detailed, and very well lit. And the script by Ted Talley also packs a very well structured and tight plot. Every character has a well-defined arc, all the themes are smartly addressed, the attention to detail is quite impressive, and the complete story and narrative are perfect. And just all the performances are knockouts, they're incredible. Easily. And more about the character of Hannibal. When it comes to the character of Hannibal Lecter, I think easily he's the best character in the film, honestly. And even though he's technically evil, he's really terrifying. He's pleasant to watch. You're easily terrified of this guy as well. And you could definitely see why anybody would be terrified of this guy when they meet him, because this guy's a freaking cannibal. This guy's not psychotically dangerous. No, this guy's really calm. And I think what makes him more terrifying is that he's not crazy, batshit insane or something. He's just calmly at times and easily that. And Hannibal's psycho behavior seems convincing as the embodiment of fear. And Buffalo Bill 2 is also good, but I think Hannibal is the more memorable villain of the film. The BGM is well expressive, and the camera work is very impressive. And A Woman Among the Gaining Men is also a Curtis theme within it, and the two criminals' story going side by side along with the sincere lady going to arrest one with the help of the other is also a thrilling setup. And if a story about the growth and change of a character, then LAMBS' narrative is really about Clarice Starling, the FBI agent who was majoring in the behavioral science division into psychological profiling of criminals, especially serial killers. Lecter, though, is just probably one of the most fascinating, seamlessly repulsive characters in fiction and film. 2. And around the movie, we learn literally that Lecter had been a university professor of psychology who made it a habit of eating human victims. And at the story's beginning, he resides at a prison of mentally disturbed criminals, where Sterling first met him in person. And there was a bit of an improvised moment where Hannibal actually made fun of Sterling's accent, and Jodie Foster's reaction was actually real. And we learn that the FBI was on the trail of the strange woman killer named Buffalo Bill by the press, and starting the lecture forms a strange, compelling bond as the film progresses. Not like true friendship, but something a little more meaningful than mere acquaintance. And part of the story's evolution is Starling's and Lecter's relationship, and it's a very subtle undertone of sexually flirting as hinted at some scenes, and we know that these two worlds could never permanently mesh. And one of the first elements that strikes you about LAMBS is its foreboding atmosphere, with some scenes having a quasi-medieval flavor, and when Starling first visits the corridor inside the mental prison which houses Lecter, you feel like you're walking into a medieval dungeon, and the stone brick is dirty and damp, and the inmates seem like something right out of Dante's Inferno. The same is true for Buffalo Bill's hideout. It's this maze of dark corridors filled with strange objects like mannequins and costumes. And the place where he imprisons his victims reigns of something out of the Spanish Inquisition. The themes of raw sexuality permeate the entire story, and there's no love affair between any of the characters. There are also overtones of objectifying human beings like Dr. Chilton, the doctor in charge of Lecter at the hospital, and both of having a sociopathic patient. As if Lecter was this rare object in a person, and the serial killers objectify their victims as a means of rationalizing their behavior. And the film is also clever in its usage of more familiar symbolism to make us feel certain ways. As Bill's next victim is driving along, we see her saying to his son on the radio, not just saying the main words, but floating between backing and the main lyrics, and just most of the time, most people would probably do in their cars. It makes us far more concerned than we would be if she was just driving home. By showing doing what most of us do, she becomes us, and we fear that more for her future fates. Alright, so hold on a second here. And when it comes to Starling's reliance on Lecter, it's more than just meet the eye. Her main priorities were just to deal with Buffalo Bill case. You can see that having spoken to Lecter on numerous levels, she took a sense of knowledge and experience out of it. The connection on an emotional level is fantastic to watch, especially as Lecter purchased out of Starling's memories of her troubled youth, and Foster in particular played this part wonderfully well. And though easily my favorite scene of the movie, when it comes to, if there was a favorite scene I had in the movie, it's easy when Claire visits the home of one of Bill's victims, and when she looks around for the room, she notices the closet, abandoned with fabric, reading and dressmaking, and realizing what Bill does to his victims. She immediately phones HQ in the desperation of her voice as she tries to articulate her discovery in the first of many climaxes the film offers. The final parody, of course, is definitely the way Denver presents America as either a victim or something hidden in a closet. The apparition never really gets to see the light of day because it's constantly being snuffed out at nights by the forces of evil. Maybe he was being prophetic in his primitive mind. And given the documentary style of the film, it's interesting how much attention is given to addition to Gum. Had he been absent more often, it definitely would have helped the suspense, but you wonder ahead of time where the story could be going. We guess what Clarice is going to do ahead of time, but what about Hannibal though? That's kind of the one thing with the editors. So, now, for it comes to the scariest scene, if I had to pick the scariest scene of the movie, it's this scene. It's the scene where Hannibal escapes from prison. How it goes is, when the guards come in to bring Hannibal's dinner, they sit it down, they have to keep his arms restrained as it's prison protocol, but Hannibal already has a plan in motion, so he goes through it politely. As soon as the guards get close to him, he bites off part of a man's cheek, but it's somewhat implied. He then smacks the man's head against the cell and sprays mace in his eyes. He then hits the other on the head with a nightstick off screen. You even see a bit of blood on the guy's face, and during Hannibal's escape, he literally wears the face of a dead guard as a disguise. His own face is even covered in blood, and you could tell he definitely likely killed the hospital worker in the ambulance. This scene is not only the scariest of the film, it's one of the scariest scenes of any movie, period. For the time you least expect this to happen, to Hannibal attacking the guards, and to him wearing the guard skin for a face to disguise himself while in the ambulance. Just one other thing this movie made this movie stand out, was the fact it doesn't rely on gore to progress a narrative, which in hands some directors would have been the case, but The Silence of the Lambs contains great dialogue, between Clarice and Hannibal, or anyone else. But those two really drive the narrative without it being boring. Not knowing whether Hannibal speaking the truth through an engrams or extremely gripping, and seeing Clarice trying to maintain her professionalism was at times antagonist Buffalo Bill really strikes fear into anybody, and is still an intriguing character to learn about, even though Hannibal Lecter is still a little more interesting than he is. Pinnacle scene in which he follows Clarice in the dark is definitely a massive panic attack causer, and generally unsure if Clarice is even going to survive, and also the experience of seeing this play out in the point of view of Buffalo Bill was hard to maintain, but definitely an effective decision by Jonathan Demme. And since Hannibal Lecter is smart, crazy, and stoic, that's actually a dangerous combination, because smart people are not crazy, and even when they are, they make an emotional mistake. Crazy people are normally not stoic, and even when they are, they're not smart enough to pull off their schemes. Stoic people are normally not smart, and even when they are, they typically are not crazy enough to disrupt the entire order of things. And in many ways, Lecter is the perfect villain. Even as the perfect villain name, because Hannibal literally rhymes with cannibal. Times. But Hannibal's not really, though, the villain, though. Really. So he's definitely not the protagonist, though. But he's helped. But to be fair, though, the reason why Hannibal's not really the main villain of this movie is because he's still helping Clarice on her quest to catch the real villain of the film, who's Buffalo Bill. I mean, there is nothing wrong with his character, but he just gets overshadowed by Lecter and Starling. But in a way, he's being on the hero side, which makes him a lot more unsettling. And if he were just a villain, the film would still be great, but it wouldn't be as interesting and complex without Lecter. And we lose a lot of the Starling and Lecter interactions, which are definitely the more big highlights of the film. An ambiguous or outright villainous hero side has been done before, but usually the character in question isn't nearly as twisted or nearly as helpful. The character of Lecter strikes a deep unease within the eyes. His position within the story deepens the unease, and it's also an unintended side because the fact that Lecter's presence hangs over the story, and even when he's not directly in it. And the way the finale of the movie goes could never have been this perfect, because after Starling figures out the name of an anagram of Iron Suicide, aka the Fool's Gold, she visits Lecter again, who's now been transferred to Tennessee, and she describes a traumatic childhood incident wherein she heard lambs screaming at slaughter of the barn but could not save them. Lecter speculates that she hopes David and Catherine will end the recurring nightmares that she has from this event, and satisfied, he returns the case files to her. And that evening, Lecter brutally kills 2 guards, and he escapes from the cell, which was that infamous face-biting scene I mentioned. And with her notes from Lecter, Starling figures out that Buffalo Bill knew his first victim, Frederica Bimel, as she travels to Bimel's Ohio hometown and discovers that she and Buffalo Bill were both tailors. In Bimel's room, she finds evidence that reveals Buffalo Bill is making a suit with human skin, and the culprit is a man named James Gum, who believes he is transsexual but was too violent to apply for a sex change operation. And Crawford and an FBI hostage rescue team storm Gum's address in Illinois to find the house empty. Then Starling follows the lead that takes her to the house of Bimel's former client, and she meets the real James Gum, not realizing he's Buffalo Bill, just spotting a death's head moth. She pursues him and finds Catherine trapped in a dry well in the cavernous basement, and Gum then stalks Starling with night vision goggles, but he reveals himself by cooking his revolver, and she reacts quickly and she shoots him dead. And Catherine is saved. Buffalo Bill's gone. And then we cut to the FBI Academy graduation party, where Starling receives a phone call from the now free Hannibal Lecter. And this time he's now hiding in the Bahamas at a Bimini airport. He assures her he has no intention of pursuing her and requests that she return the favor, which she says she cannot. He hangs up because he states that he's having an old friend for dinner, and he trails the newly arrived Chilton into the crowd. And we know he's probably that person he's having for dinner, he's gonna kill and eat. So yeah, it's a pretty chilling ending because you know very well that Hannibal Lecter is still at large and is out to commit some more crimes. And you never know who could be targeted next. So it's a chilling but bittersweet way to end the film. Buffalo Bill stopped, and Clarice is now going to be an official officer, but Hannibal Lecter is still at large, and we don't even know if he's going to, and we don't even know if what's going to happen next. Do I have any bad qualities for Silence of the Lambs? I can't think of any. That's for the most rare occasion. Maybe just Buffalo Bill kind of getting overshadowed, but nothing. I don't have any other bad qualities. Why, you ask? Because Silence of the Lambs is a flawless movie in my eyes, and it honestly has no problems. It'll be always one of those rare films with no bad qualities. So yeah, Silence of the Lambs is a flawless masterpiece in every way. In the end, I would highly watch and buy Silence of the Lambs for your collection because it deserves to be there. Definitely deserves to be on your shelf. DVD or Blu-ray shelf, it doesn't matter. Either shelf. Anyways, it's it for my review of Silence of the Lambs. If you're wondering how I'm going to rate Silence of the Lambs, here's how I'm going to rate this movie. So overall, if you want to see the first film to feature Hopkins' iconic portrayal of Hannibal Lecter and a phenomenal horror film with no flaws, then totally watch and buy this movie for your collection without a doubt. And if you're wondering how I'm going to rate Silence of the Lambs, I'm going to give Silence of the Lambs a full-blown fucking 10 out of 10. There we go. That wraps up my review for Silence of the Lambs, so what's going to be the next episode? Well, our next episode is going to be for a vampire movie for Robert Rodriguez. And it was from 1996, and this was back when he actually gave a shit. Yes, guys, From Dusk Till Dawn is going to be the next episode. But until then, guys, that'll be it for this episode. Thank y'all for watching. If you like this, want to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe to Don G. Corleone.